Nerfs, buffs, and some bug fixes. Today, with the first reset of Phase 3, we have some official news from Blizzard on what hot fixes have now gone live. And the first one is a nerf to the ridiculously overpowered Dark Moon card, Sandstorm. Look at the damage right here. This is a 5,000 DPS pull from a rogue that is just using the Dark Moon card, Sandstorm. And what this card does is it procs on your spells or attacks to summon basically those little sandstorms that you saw going around, and they hit everything they pass through for 100 to 200 nature damage. Now, this is no longer going to officially proc on every single instant cast spell. It did have a 100% proc rate on instant cast spells, which is kind of ridiculous, honestly, so it makes sense that Blizzard nerfed that. Now, it may still have a pretty high proc chance, which would mean it's absolutely best for overall in a raid. I'm definitely going to be checking in on it and seeing how well it performs in the raid in the next few days. Next, there was a hotfix where the druid trainer Loganar was not appearing in Moonglade. This caused a lot of stress and drama for me personally, but he is now here. So if you want to get your crafted gear, this NPC should always be up on every layer, so it will not be a massive stopgap. You now can get all of your crafted epics. Blizzard has also made it so that the raid flasks will now persist through death. They are flasks after all, so they obviously should persist through death, as well as they have done some class tuning or more of class adjustments to some of the bugs that were happening in the classes, not necessarily so much of any sort of nerfs or buffs to any of the classes, at least just yet. So first, for druids, their free cast of Wrath, whenever they have Fury of the Storm Rage, the rune using it, it will no longer consume a clear casting proc. It's not a massive difference, but it is a quality of life thing. Like, it shouldn't consume a clear casting proc. As well as Rumsy Rum, if you were spamming this, it was always proccing Omen of Clarity. Now this won't proc Omen of Clarity. It was a bug and kind of an exploit. And Priest's Void Zone will no longer have such an aggressively kind of overpowering animation. You can actually see them in the background right here. This is the original animation on a pre-nerf kill of Aranicus, which we'll get into in a second, but this animation was just kind of taking up too much of the screen and definitely being distracting, and it will definitely make it hard for any player later on to actually escape any sort of mechanics, because there's literal void zone mechanics in different raids, mainly in Naxxramas, that you would never be able to see if they're underneath the priest void zones. And getting kicked while casting void zone will now officially lock you out of the shadow spell school, which it should have always done, as well as the damage from void zones was resetting wand attacks for priests, so your wands will no longer just be consistently reset as long as you have a void zone out. Shaman's Tidal Waves rune will now properly affect the Shaman's healing waves, and it will also still affect the next healing wave even if it is in the spell queue or if it's being cast right now as soon as Tidal Waves procs. Warrior's Shield Slam now produces 200% extra threat, so it'll make it a lot easier for warrior tanks to get threat, and also Devastate was bugged and only giving 100% of your weapon damage. Now it should be fixed correctly, giving you 150%. Rogue's Honor Among Thieves was a little bit buggy considering whenever players were PvP flagged or not, or if the target died when Honor Among Thieves was active. This should no longer be the case. And there was a bug where Carnage was falling off with a certain rank of Rupture. This also should no longer be the case. Warlock's Felguards will now consistently cast Cleave, their Cleave ability, even if it is only one target they are fighting against. It was not always going off, so now the Felguard will cast that, increasing their DPS, I believe, in single target as well. And the demonic sacrifice buff of sacrificing your Felguard will now go away if you switch out that rune. So if you couldn't even summon the Felguard, you shouldn't be able to get the buff from it. But that's also something that mages were doing with their Molten Armor rune that was giving them 5% extra crit. Mages were able to place the Molten Armor rune on, cast the ability, and then swap runes and keep up the buff, giving them 5% crit. This has now been fixed. On top of that, Balefire Bolt now has a plethora of fixes. Like, it now consistently works with all of the mage's abilities, like things like Combustion or Arcane Blast. So if you want to see all of those changes, they're just right here because it's quite a bit and it's all basically relating to Balefire Bolt. On top of that, there were some nerfs that came today to the Sunken Temple raid to the last two bosses, Shade of Aranicus and the Avatar of Hakar. They both had their already nerfed HP nerfed again by 35%. So what the nerfed original version of the HP was down to 2.7 million has been nerfed again. Also, the ads that spawn on this boss have been nerfed as well. Now there will be 2 less of the nightmares or 2 less of the whelps that spawn, down from 8 to 6, as well as the elite mobs are down from 3 that spawn to 2 that spawn. On top of that, you can no longer use the ledge strat. So just seeing this ledge strat, it is no longer viable, although you can kind of pull the boss near the little bones right here, and this should actually spawn all of the ads right on top of them. The bosses also cannot thrash anymore. It's not in the official notes, but it seems like the bosses won't thrash anymore, which means they won't hit your tank 3 times in a row instantly, all in one global, meaning it usually will just wipe your tank instantly. It basically means these bosses are a lot less scary and a lot easier to deal with. They're going down a lot faster. So these nerfs are coming in. So all of Sunken Temple, the entire raid, has been nerfed quite significantly now at this point. And lastly, there was a nerf to Nightmare Incursions. The XP you get in Nightmare Incursions was dropped significantly, but the normal XP buff you get in the open world was raised to 75% instead of 50%. Nightmare Incursions, not the best way to level anymore, but they're still pretty good. And the reputation gains that you get from the level 50 quests have been increased to allow you to gain rep a lot faster. And that should cover all of the news, at least so far today with this reset. If anything else comes out, come hang out on Twitch to see me react to it live, or I'll break it down for you guys all in a video once I'm done streaming. With that being said, I hope you all have a good one, and I'll see you all on the next one.